We are live, ladies and gentlemen, with another amazing episode of Bigger and Louder. As always, I'm handsome face, too good to be true, Anthony.
And I'm John. John D.
Very subtle. And just want to, intro our new intro music, dedicated to us, made by the amazing and famous Jordy Beats.
All right. Shout out Jordy Beats. Shout out Jordy Beats.
Well, John, yeah, it's been a little bit since we've spoken to last week. So tell me, man, like, what's been new, man? How's everything with you?
Everything's good, man. Everything's good. Still crack-a-lacking with the job applications over here. But you tell me, I heard you came into a big stack of cash over there. You sold your motorcycle.
Yeah, man. I was, I remember I talked to you about it earlier, and I finally sold my bike. It's been on my to-do list, but I've been trying to save up for a bigger bike, and I said the hell with it. The bike I had was in really good condition. It was, I gave it to someone who really needed it more than I did. They were learning their career as a rider, and they honestly just fell in love with it. So, and I'm just happy they have it, and they should start riding safely.
What'd you have?
I purposely bought a Honda Rebel. It's really kind of a starter bike, but I bought it for the purpose. So again, I used to live in the city, and getting to my house and to my job was like so close but so far, and I didn't feel like walking or like taking a train back and forth if I could avoid it. So I bought this particular bike just so I can kind of drive and park in between cars. It just made things easier, but it's essentially like a starter bike for anyone interested in learning. The engine's a lot more smaller than, let's say, the 600 series, or if you're going up to like the Fury and the Honda or other bigger bikes. I just have no need for it just with the open roads we have here in my neighborhood. So somebody else was really eager to learn to ride, and they contacted me on Facebook Marketplace and just said, listen, can we talk? I'm really interested. And they basically bought it within like 2 weeks. I was like, enjoy.
Which is funny because I think I would be. I've never ridden a bike, for the record, like a motorcycle. The only time I've ridden was hugging the back of my uncle. When he had his Harley. But I think I would be more open to having one or learning to ride one if I lived in like an area like yours, which are like fewer people on the roads, more open, or like where we grew up in upstate New York. Because for me, living in Los Angeles, it's like you're signing your death certificate from me.
I believe it.
To ride your bike out here. And one thing that's legal in, I think, all of California is like the lane splitting.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's like legal in New York or in Connecticut, but these guys like whiz through traffic. Now, I think it's one thing if like, everyone's doing like 80 miles an hour and, you're like, all right, you're whipping around. But if traffic is stopped dead, which it is oftentimes on a Los Angeles freeway, and you're doing like 40 miles an hour, or the 30, 40 miles an hour through the car lane, if someone tries to change lanes like a prick without checking, like they always do, you are going to smack right into that car.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's never been worth it for me.
No, it's definitely like an unwritten rule that bikers follow. That seems to be like an advantage if you're in like gridlock traffic. Like they will zip in between the cars. If not like zipping, they can just like cruise. Again, that's the advantage of having a motor. It's against the law, but I don't think any, flatfoot is gonna like chase him down for going through the lanes, because it's not
any flatfoot. What's a flatfoot?
Cop who just happens to see it and is like, how dare you, starts chasing down, and like they're gonna try and cite you. Can you imagine that? Like seeing a cop running behind you in the rearview mirror, like pull that bike over.
I think if you're if you're gonna catch somebody on a bike, you have to be on a bike if you're a cop.
Oh, absolutely. You can't.
It's like if you're gonna stop, you have to like, really hope that they're gonna listen and stop for you in a car if you're an officer, right?
Yeah, I mean, like eventually, like if that were to ever, back to 2 points to your first one before I forget about it. Yeah, like it's something that bikers do, and is it something that makes it unfair for drivers? Sure, but like that's essentially why you get a bike if you're someone who commutes on the highway a lot of times. But to the other side of it, what we talk about, like if you actually got cited, there are videos of actually bikers who actually evade the police when they're trying to pull them over, and you think like if they ever get caught, like they're gonna get cited just for doing over the speed limit or actually just not listening to the police officer. But actually, if you continue if the pursuit continues, they can actually set you for harder violations. I forgot like what it's called, but like it's not like it's not. It's like just below manslaughter, where like you're driving, you're riding at a speed that they can consider
Like
like
reckless endangerment.
reckless endangerment at like certain levels, and certain states have very low tolerance for that. So like if you're doing like
Negligent driving.
100 in like a 70 or a 60, like not only can they take away your fucking bike and your license, but you actually go to jail for that in some states.
I mean, you don't do 100 miles an hour in a car on the highway?
All right. I mean, like, all right, maybe not 100 miles an hour, but like the speed. I mean, there's
120, 130, 140,
th-
you know, something like
there's a
that.
limit.
Doing
Yeah,
wheelies,
yeah,
doing, you know, you're driving recklessly. Like that would be
yeah,
one thing. You know, robbing banks, that would be another thing.
yeah. Maybe
But
not 100 miles, but there's definitely a mileage that if the bike crosses that line and the police see that,
I mean,
like,
it's
it's just,
anybody speeding. It's not just a bike. Like if you're going, and I think that's anything. Like if you're doing, you know, let's just say you're in a school zone and it's 25 miles an hour and you're doing 60, right? That to me would be cause to lose your license. Like I think
mhm.
like that's a brutal punishment, or like at least be suspended, not like, you know, revoked, but like, you know, you should be suspended because like that's negligent. Like that's a school zone. You know, people are whizzing down, you know, big streets or whatever, you know, especially here in LA where like those streets are really wide where schools usually are. You know, we're all guilty of going a little bit fast.
Yeah.
You know, maybe 40 miles an hour. But I think like the unwritten rule has always been if you go like 10 or 15 miles an hour over on the highway, like if it's 55 in, you know, in New York, like it used to be, or 65, you know, I do 15 miles. I'll do 70. I'll do 80, 55 or 65. Right. You know, but I know like if you're driving in Nevada, like I've driven cross country twice and there are
How miserable were
spots where
you
there's
doing
like,
that? What the hell motivated
yeah,
you to drive coast to
yeah,
coast twice? Shit, man.
right. So that is, there are areas where, dude, the speed limit's like 75 or plus, like whatever you deem is safe, you know, so you could be like doing close to 100 miles an hour. Like I think they'd probably snag you for that. But I don't know,
Yeah,
man.
I mean, it
So like
depends on
you only
yeah.
sold your bikes and you only sold it because you want to get a bigger bike. You didn't sell it because you're done riding bikes.
No, God, no. It's just like it just makes the purchase a lot more easier having versus having to tap into like your reserves for
Yeah.
like,
Had the cash in your
retirement,
pocket.
401k, all that kind of stuff. It's just like if you can, instead of your bike being worth like 12,000, now it's worth maybe around like 6,000. It just makes the gap close that gap a little bit.
Yeah. And I guess it's better than doing a trade in,
But
right?
no,
If
you
you
don't
bring
want
it
no,
back.
you would never want to do a trade in because first off, if you trade it in, you are going to get absolutely raped in terms of what that bike is really worth because any dealer
Trigger
probably
warning.
yep. Trigger warning. But if you actually ever do get choose to do that, you're going to get less than what the bike is worth because they want to resell for a profit. Like I called up a few people just to see if they would entertain buying it, right? And they were like, "Well, we'll give you like $1,200 for it." I'm like, "Absolutely not!" Like that. This bike is in amazing
Suck my
condition.
dick. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's 7 years old, but like it's got under 1,000 miles on it. So like, I kept very good care of this thing. Like it's
I
just,
mean, I've seen your bike. It looks great. Like it's got a lot
yeah,
of dust on it.
yeah.
When
That's
I was a
literally
guy.
what that's the only wear and tears. You got dust on it, but like, I
Yeah.
changed the oil. I did everything that you're
Mm.
supposed. The bike runs smooth. There's nothing wrong with
Now,
this bike.
okay. Now here's a good one.
Yeah.
Your dad,
Mhm.
Big Val,
Big V.
he had a Nova, a Chevy Nova.
He had a Chevy Nova and 70 Chevy Nova many years. He still has it to this day. He souped
No
it up
shit.
and he's never rides,
Good. Good.
he never drives it. I mean, it's just like a
Okay,
shell.
because that's what I was gonna say, dude. That thing sat in his garage or your garage as long as I ever knew you,
Yeah.
and I never. I mean, I think I saw it out of the garage one time,
Yeah.
and he was waxing it.
It was like a fine wine. Like he has it, you don't open it. I was like, well, then
He
what did
just
you put
spins
all
the
this work?
bottle. He just spins the bottle. Yeah,
Yeah.
just gets out there
It
like.
was wild because like you did all this work. He took it out maybe like I would say once every leap year, right? Like literally. And then when he did, it was always a treat because like the car, I mean, the thing had things got muscle behind it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like he put
He
work into
built
that
that
thing.
himself. He built that thing himself, or he
I mean, he
bought it?
built what he no, he it was shit when he had it, or rather, was like he put work into that thing to make it like stand out. And everywhere he went, he always got like ooh and ah. It's like everyone's
I
like,
mean, it
wow, like
had that like speckled blue, shiny blue color, right?
yeah, yeah.
That's I
It had
remember
that.
that.
It was like a royal bluish, if you will.
Yeah, it was like I
And
remember it had like the little sparkles, little sparkles.
yeah, I mean, it handles okay, but like again, we just never
You're
understood
not
like
into
why.
cars? Are you into cars? My dad
Not
had
as
a
much.
bunch.
Yeah, I'm not into cars as much as bikes, believe it or not. Like, and when I say that, I mean that loosely. Like, I know I'm not a mechanic, and I couldn't tell you like what the best fender is compared to like which brake pads. It's just like I didn't go to mechanic school, so I couldn't tell you like I couldn't appreciate it in a way that the industry people probably appreciate it. I'm more of like a window
Did you think
shopper.
your
Like,
dad
ooh,
or my dad went to mechanic school? Do you think like these guys went to mechanic? No,
no,
like they
but they grew
learned
up with
by
it though.
doing
They
it. They
they
know they
grew
do it.
Yeah, but like you grew up with like things to to fix your own cars and do things like that, and it's just like I don't know. It's like why is our generation so involved in video gaming, right? Like then like fixing cars is like a thing. Like they didn't have that shit. So what do you do at your time? Go learn a
Go
skill.
check the dipstick. Yeah,
Yeah, listen, go rotate the tires. Rotate the tires for me. All right, I'll go rotate the tires. Yeah, fix the
You
brake
know,
pad.
my dad had a 1980 white Corvette. And
Mm,
that thing was nice. It
like
had
Don
T-tops. You know
Johnson
what
was
T-tops are?
no, enlighten me.
T-tops are,
Wait a minute.
I
Is
think,
that the one where it's like it literally like it kind of what Don Johnson had in Miami Vice, where it literally goes from like the end of the hood, but it goes to the back of the seat and
one
literally like,
straight
dude,
bar
one
back, and there's
straight
two
bar.
windows that get
Yes.
removed.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah. Now I know what you're talking about.
yes.
Yeah.
So yes, that is exactly what I'm talking about for once. And
Fuck you.
uh,
Fuck you.
yeah. And
Fuck
I
you.
got to drive it one time before he sold that thing. He let me drive it like around my neighborhood, and that was
Yeah.
fun, man. That was like that car was really nice. And
When you
then
took it.
now,
Yeah.
and this is my fault mostly, I think. Like, so sorry, Pop, but
He
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 bought this
Carl.
like 1946. He bought a 1946 Chevy Fleetmaster, this like really old, you know, Dick Tracy looking motherfucking car, dude. And it was in, I wouldn't say like, I mean, it wasn't operable or whatever, but, and I don't remember if the engine turned over, but he bought it off like eBay back in the day from Maine. And it was cheaper to buy it from Maine and have it shipped down here than to buy it like from a place near us or in Pennsylvania. So he gets this car, does like a ton of work, gets an engine for it and rear end, does a bunch of welding with some of his buddies and like some of our friends' dads. And now it's just been sitting there because it's like no one, there's like obviously people are like busy and stuff. And it's like I'm not there. I'm in California to go help him, do work on it. But it's like he's had that car for a long time. Like I hope he fixes that up one day. I've been out there like not only looking for like finance jobs, dude, but like I stumbled across a dating coach application. Like there's a network of
A
dating
dating
coaches.
coach, like what you coach people how to date or how to pick up people. Like, is that what you're talking about?
I'm not too sure. So like the ad is pretty
What the hell
general.
does that mean? You're gonna
So
take a
well, the
job you
ad,
don't know about?
well, no, I mean the ad is pretty general. I mean, and you tell me, okay, you tell me if this doesn't sound like it would be, and and I think some of our listeners would probably even know better than you. But
Fuck you.
are you able to work a couple of hours in the evenings? Are you good with socializing with people? Consider being a dating coach. We need both men and women to be able to meet in public settings to teach people how to break the ice in conversations, how to develop personalities and stand out in social gatherings, and really potentially meet that lifelong partner. This opportunity is completely at your control, and you're up to it's. Oh, I'm sorry. You are able to be yourself and teach skills. I guess you should say teach your skills. Please contact us if this interests you to go over the information.
Well, listen, if you it sounds like you're signing yourself up for one of those 1-800 call numbers where they pay to talk to somebody on the other line, and it's just like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. Just making myself some dinner. Oh yeah.
So
It's like,
funny story. Let's take another journey down memory lane. About 3 days ago, like last week,
man, that's really
I
far. That's far.
yeah, no, I know. I we're trying to think. I'm looking for, again, like all over for just like some little gigs and see some fun things that are out there. And I came across a bunch of different voice performance, like voice talent. So whether it's like one interesting one was an AI, right? Like they want to listen to your voice, record you, and potentially use your voice for their AI platform. And it's like, all right, you know, whatever. Like, you know, imagine your AI talking to me.
You've got mail.
You got some mail over here. Check your mail.
Yeah. It's like
clean out your fucking inbox.
Yeah, you're driving down, all of a sudden you hear John's voice. Turn left. Now turn right. You are there.
I don't think I would sound like a robot. I think I would sound a little bit better than that, wouldn't I?
You idiot. Make a U-turn. I told you left. Why did you do that? You fuckhead. It's just like you get like you get one warning and then you get two fucking like swears back at the person.
That was one job. The next was for customer service. Customer service, I feel like would be a good one, right? Talk to people on the phone, help them out, give them like, you know, you follow some protocols or some scripts online. But the next one was interesting because it said counseling, customer service, and client relations. Counseling, customer service, and client relations. And it's like, oh, okay, another interesting.
That's a nicer word for customer service,
right?
But customer service is it, right? Like, you know what that work really entails?
It's a complaint line. Yeah, it's a complaint.
Right. Basically, you are going to get people yelling at you for you having done nothing, and you having to hold your tongue, not telling someone to go fuck off because the answer is right there on their keyboard. Just hit enter, and they're asking you why you can't actually make this more simplified. And you're but hey, listen,
sir. And I said, okay, that's an interesting, you know, job. You know, it's work from home. Let me see what it is. And it had a link, so I clicked the link, and then as soon as you go to it, it's a phone entertainment line. So it's not like counseling. It's like talking to people that are lonely, talking to people that want phone sex, like all that kind of shit. I'm like, Jesus. So it's like, you know, you got to watch it. But like, these are the type of things that are out there. Like, it's all over the place. Like, there's some like AI stuff. That was really interesting. Like, I don't know if you or anyone would necessarily want my voice doing anything besides like singing them a little lullaby to sleep. But you know,
that sounds very disturbing. That you almost sound like close to a pedophile there. My God, man.
Please check this recipe out. Here's what goes into the sauce:
2 tablespoons of salt, 1 tablespoon of coriander, 3 tablespoons of
time to wake up. This is your alarm.
Well, listen, if they're paying you cash to hand, why wouldn't you do it, man?
Yeah, well, cash.
Well, why not? Well, why not? Like
Venmo to Venmo.
It just seems like a gig that they give you. Like, I don't know if like actors and other voice actors, they don't get steady work. It's just how many gigs can they keep landing.
Did you watch the Tom Brady roast yet?
Yeah, I did. It was so long. I had to actually like skip through some of the things that people who like were just like not really entertaining as much. But like, I got
I cried through the whole thing.
I got through the whole like the 2 bears, but like when they brought on like Randy Moss, I didn't find him entertaining. I'm like, let's get through Randy Moss and you know, I don't know, like there were some people who I just wasn't like shining on me, but everyone who like it was a good roast. It was a very good roast.
It was long. It was long. I will say that it was 3 hours long. It was long, but it was good. And they did it live. And I was lucky enough, like I caught the recording, I think like early Monday morning. And I didn't watch it live on Sunday. I watched it like early Monday morning, and I was still able to see like Kim Kardashian get booed. Did you see her get booed in yours?
Yeah. So like as she's walking up to the stage, you heard like, I don't know if they through the power of technology settled it, but you heard the boos. It wasn't as abrupt as someone told me. He was like,
was she like, okay, that's enough?
No, they just went right, and she went right into her shtick. Like,
yeah, see, I got to see that still. It was like pretty bad, man. But I would also say, like, this is only hearsay, but from people that were there, they were saying that, oh, you know, every time they showed her on the big screen during like a cut or whatever, she would get booed. And I'm like, man, that's harsh. Like, I don't necessarily like Kim Kardashian, but I'm not a hater. Like, I'm not gonna boo the woman, you know.
Like what is she, the Roger Goodell? Like, is she like the new Roger Goodell? Where like, okay, and finally, like, with the first overall pick.
Tom Brady had that good joke though, didn't he? They spent $20 million on the investigation, You could have just given me the 20 million and I would have said I did it. Yeah, and like
Yeah.
that one was good. I don't know if he wrote that,
Yeah.
but like that was a good
No,
one.
it's pretty. He has some good. I mean, listen, they're athletes. They did not write their content, and actually, even Peyton Manning says, "Oh, there's a teleprompter teller they're probably reading off of."
Yeah, there were a lot of errors, right? Though, like you could see, like Gronk really did have a problem reading.
Well, yeah, think about it. Like, do you really believe these athletes are like? Well, some. I can't say not all, but like some athletes are pretty good at having a good sense of humor. Like Peyton Manning, you can see like he can hold himself on camera, but he's like there's a teleprompter there, like we're reading it, like for the jokes, just like do the Academy Awards. Because think about 2.5 hours coming up with your own material, like making sure you don't miss a beat. Like it's time. Like they got to fit it all in correctly, and if you fumble around and you're not obviously hitting the jokes correctly, it's going to hurt your ratings and it's going to take you over uh that for time that you can't really afford. That being said, the with the roast, the thing that I think I mean, we shouldn't even be talking about it because the internet's going to hear that we use the word roast and Tom Brady and they're going to fucking like subpoena this fucking and like get us off because obviously they didn't like it when they cracked a joke in the first like 10 minutes on Robert Kraft about like wanting a massage. And he was like, yo, don't say that shit again. That really kind of like irked me a little bit. Like Tom Brady, like you're going up to like the roast master. You knew what you signed up for. And you're now telling him like, don't crack jokes like that. Like that's the shit like about Tom Brady. I never understand. Like there's like a line he's not afraid to let you know, like don't cross that line with you and me. It's just like who gives a shit? Like it happened. Like get over it.
Wait a minute.
Right?
So you're telling me you don't like Tom Brady?
I'm saying I do, but he's also like got these quirks
Oh,
about him.
fuck that.
What do you
Fuck
fuck
Tom
that?
Brady, dude. Come on. You're telling me you like Tom Brady? You're a Giants fan. You like Tom Brady.
I don't like him. I respect him. His game. I respect his game. I mean,
Yeah, I respect his game.
how
Yeah,
can you? How
sure.
can you?
Yeah.
Honestly, like, how could you not? How can you shame the guy? Like, he is literally what happened to him, man. Is literally a phenomenon. Like, he was drafted 199th, and honestly, like, if it wasn't for the fucking Jets taking out Drew Bledsoe, excuse me, like, he never would. He never would have seen the field ever. Like, that was the whole thing was a fluke. Literally, Drew
Well, he
Bledsoe was
was
their
sitting
guy.
behind Drew Bledsoe. So, like, Drew Bledsoe was old, right?
But he wasn't old to like you're coming at like you're retiring. Like, no, he was the player the Patriots were investing their money and time into. He actually was with them in the shittier years when they were rebranding. He was with them through
Oh,
all the
that's true.
and like Tom Brady basically inherited his team that he stuck with while they were rebranding and rebuilding. And Tom Brady basically went on the up and up at that point. And even Drew Bledsoe said, yeah, you stole the team that I built. Like, you asshole.
So there you go.
Like
So you agree with that? What do you think about Tom Brady? What are your real opinion about Tom Brady?
I like him. I respect his game. I take it back. Actually, I'm saying two things simultaneously that shouldn't be. Let me rephrase. I'm sure if he was in a room with me right now, we have a great conversation. He would have sparked up a good combo. I respect the man in his game because he did when he came, he delivered despite the Flakegate, Spygate, the NFL making rules in their favor, so on and so forth. But like the man can play. Like he has, and the thing is, like when you see him and the way he presents himself, both in the field and literally off the field, you think this is like probably the most laid back guys on the planet. But like this guy, he likes to compete. Like, and you can't read that off of like his personality because he's just like, Mr. Whatever, like let it roll off my
All
shoulders kind of
buttoned up
shit.
all the time.
All
Well, I
buttoned
mean, I
up.
think my problem with Tom Brady, I mean, look, like my problem with Tom Brady is strictly because, like, yes, he was a Patriot. I think like he's obviously awesome. Like, you can't take anything away from the guy, what he's done on the field. But I'm just really, really happy and very proud, and it's why my dog's name is Eli. That the Giants handed him 2 losses. And I think like that to me is like the big, I'm happy that that was at least a blemish on his career that, we could wear proudly as Giants fans. But yeah, like other than that, like the roast was awesome. And, I've heard they're going to continue doing them on Netflix now, which I think is even more awesome because they obviously could say whatever the fuck they want. Like it's not cable, right? Like when they were on Comedy Central, I know that they were unfiltered, but I don't think that they got like as dirty as this. Like from what I can remember, I was young back then, but Yeah,
Yeah,
some of
I
those
mean,
roasts were like really fucking good, dude.
listen to David Hasselhoff one, the Pamela Anderson one. I mean, like that's the thing. Like, if you don't, well, I don't know if you know this. I'm sure you do, but these roasts are nothing new that came about in the early 2000s. They were doing these roasts back during the,
Yeah, yeah, of course, dude.
but some people don't know that. They think this is just something that just like came up. But no, they were doing these roasts back during like the Rat Pack years. But the jokes they were doing then were a bit more G-rated and a bit more fun. Whereas they really are taking hard shots at people for things that are just like cross, like the line that you don't
So
cross. Like
pop quiz though. Who's the original roast master, dude?
if I'm not
You know so much
mistaken,
about the roasting.
well, I don't know everything about it, but I think the original roast master, I think, was D. Martin. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't he?
No,
Wasn't he that
Don
dude?
Rickles, Dean
Oh, Don
Martin. Dean
Rickles.
Martin
D.
was a
Martin.
singer. Don
No, he was
Rickles
on
was
there.
like the
Don
original.
Rickles.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. What else? What else you got? Hot shot. Alice in
Mm,
Borderland fucking sucks.
you can suck a dick and go take a walk, man. Like you don't know anything. But since you want to bring that up, we just finished wrapping up the new show called Botkin. It's really
What'd you
cool.
think? I want to check it out.
Loved it. Loved it. But
Funny?
again, like it's not like funny, like you're gonna be on the floor throwing yourself like crying. It's got like that kind of like humor in between, but I really took more to it more as like a murder mystery, like really what happened in this town of Ireland. But again, like
Mhm.
if you don't like Alice in Borderland, don't watch this because I love both of them. So apparently to
I'm
you.
not saying I'm not going to like anything you don't like. Obviously, we have a lot of overlap in movies we like, but like, or in TV shows. But I think this one, like, you pitched it as, yeah, I'd say like there's like obviously the element of like death in a game that equates it somewhat to Squid Game, but I think it is nothing like Squid Game other than that.
Right. And I don't know, and I told you, I don't know how, like, because Alice in Borderland came before Squid Games. And I don't know how or when or where they were in the right place at the right time. Squid Games basically gets,
COVID. That's where everybody was.
well,
COVID.
yeah, but no, like Squid Games, no, Alice in Borderland came out like right at the same time as COVID, and then right after. Well, who cares? But like, I don't know how Squid Games. And again, I'm not dissing it in terms of like, oh, it's a great show. We're all still waiting for season 2. I just don't know how that game show of death got more hype globally than Alice in Borderland. I don't know. They're doing the same thing. It's just one's childlike games, the other one's escape games. And I don't see like
It's
how.
not the same concept, man. That's the difference. Like, it's not the same concept. Okay, so for those of you that haven't watched either of these things, Alice in Borderlands, the show that Anthony recommended I watch, that I begrudgingly plowed through a season of, is about three friends, male friends, who get transported seemingly to like another dimension, another area, another whatever, where they are enclosed within a border that is now like they're monitored by aerial drones of some sort that can kill them with lasers at any given time. So they move through this area and they are forced to play games that are lethal, that are ranked of different, we talked about this, ranked with different playing cards, different suits, and different numbers for their difficulty. And like, who knows if you're going to survive. Squid Game is about people who willingly participated in a game
For
that
money.
for money, that they knew that their life was at risk for. So to
Right.
me, they're not the same. And it's like, yeah, sure. Like there's an element of death and they're playing some games, but it's like, that's
Well, you
it.
can't. Well, yeah, it's like I told you, like they're taking they took like like I don't know how to say this any like where it's going to be unique, but like you take Alice in Borderland, that plot,
Like
just do another.
Jumanji. Jumanji is the same then.
Right. It's like you
You
just
die in
basically
Jumanji. That's a
you take
game.
you take another game, place it in Asia, and instead of it being like escape games, we're gonna do childhood games, and instead of it being forced on them, you have the will to participate in the Squid Games if you think you can survive the game of death. So like they're just tweaking it around so it's not completely identical for copyright
All right.
reasons.
Well, I have a proposition for you then, because
Yeah.
here's another idea for all my writing friends that are listening to this. Let's write a Korean version like of
Korean
Jumanji.
version of Jumanji.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how much not only will you be heckled, but then like removed from? removed from society as a respected
No,
citizen.
no,
You
I'll
can do
have
that.
fanboys like you who watch Alice in Borderlands that will love it. Because think about this. Right now, we don't know the origin of Jumanji. The farthest back that we've gone in the world of Jumanji, 3 films that they've had is 1869. Okay. So we're talking
Mhm.
like American Civil War. It's New Hampshire, right? That's where the setting is in Brantford, New
The
Hampshire.
British are coming. The
And
British are coming.
about 100 years later or so, give or take, that's when Robin Williams' character Alan finds the game and gets transported. But what happens before 1869? What's the origin of this game? Did it start in Africa? Like, it would be kind of seemingly, or like, did it start like
Tibet,
somewhere in Southeast
Australia.
Asia,
I don't know. I
Tibet,
think.
right?
Yeah, I think.
What do you think is the most practical origin of a
I don't know. I
Jumanji game?
think, well, again, just based on the hunter who would like Van Pelt, with the way he was dressed, it looked like he's a big game hunter. So I feel like he's got the mold for like going in Botswana or near like Papua New Guinea and places like in that sector of the world where literally you go and start like big game huntings. That's like where I think it all kind of
Okay.
like, but like
And
how
we
did
know
this
that
game?
as
Yeah.
fact. We know that like some of it as fact because in the second one with The Rock and Kevin Hart and Jack Black and everyone, those films they transport to Jumanji, and Jumanji is just a figment, like it's like a island, for lack of a better term, or like it's a flat Earth. Yeah, it's a flat Earth of Jumanji, and what I think is my point, or like what my point is like where did the game get created? Like, how did the game get created?
Mhm.
Not where is Jumanji, but like, where did the game get created? Because that's the origin story people want to hear. Like, how did Jumanji get created? Who were the first people to play it? And let's make an R-rated version of this where some people are getting fucking gored by rhinos, and eating again.
Mhm.
Like I thought some of the best scenes and the funniest scenes in the new series, like the new 2 films, were when the characters were getting killed. Like when he eats the cake and explodes, or when the hippo
Yeah.
eats Jack Black. Like those are hysterical, man. Like
Mhm.
and totally got me by surprise. Reminiscent to when Samuel L. Jackson gets eaten by the shark in Deep Blue Sea, which is
Mhm.
another one of my favorite death scenes. But I think like that's the story I want to see. And then like to your point, we keep it in the genre. It's like there's actually life on the line. The practical and logical way to think would be that not everyone's made it out of Jumanji. Every character we know so far has made it out, but not
So like,
everybody's made it out, right?
well, first of all, I got 2 things on a baker noodle that maybe you noticed, but something else that's going a little bit deeper. So the first thing is like I call bullshit on just like continuity. So we already know like the game was obviously it started how it was created is irrelevant right now, but like we know that it was a board game, right? Like this is clearly before technology advanced between like the Atari or PCs and Macs and things like that. So we know how the first protagonist, obviously Robin Williams was transported to the game in the 60s, and then we get that whole story. And then we get the remake, right? And then it's just like, okay, we have like 4 high school students who go rummaging through a fucking house. They find this old Atari game, and it's like called Jumanji. So the fact that they have now like needed to like put a plot point into the fact that we live in the 21st century now, people aren't playing board games, but we're gonna like dilute the concept now to sort of like we're no longer a board game. We are now dating this back to the Atari years of the 70s and 60s. That's like, and again, the reason why I bring that up is because it wasn't like they were transported in and it was like a whole new story to the Jumanji genre or the jungle game. But they even reference like Alan Parrish. It's like they're in the video game and they see like, oh, Alan Parrish was here. But guess what? Alan Parrish wasn't transported via video game. He was transported by the board game. So it's like there was
I
clear
mean,
that's
but like Jesus, suspend your reality for a second. You're talking about
no,
Mr. Alice in Borderlands here. Mr. Alice
no.
in Borderland Okay, so I think you've
I know
answered
you
the
didn't even watch
question.
that shit. I know you
I
probably
did. I
like
watched the whole
you,
thing.
you turned it on. You were like, "This is gonna suck," and you're like, "I'm just gonna suck it up for the next 5 episodes." And then you're like, "Ah, this really sucks." And it's like, "Ah, whatever."
Okay,
I
I
know that's what you did.
promise. I promise you, and I promise our listeners that next episode, you and I will have a discussion on the specificities of Alice in Borderland, so you believe that I watched it. But
I know you
again,
probably watched
you
it, but
you
did
need
you
to
even care
suspend your
shit?
belief here for a second, because if you can suspend your belief for Alice in Borderlands, where all of a sudden they've been transported or other people have disappeared, whatever the plot may be,
Well, yeah,
to some other location,
yeah.
um, then you can absolutely suspend your belief to think that the same place exists through multiple points of entry, like Jumanji. Like, let's say
What
that
the
it was two
fuck
different
are you
games. For a
talking
second,
about?
let's just say that it was two different games. Like, the board game is still in existence, and this Jumanji game is like a new version of it, right? The portal, the place Jumanji, could still be the same destination for all of them, similar to the way that either or all the people were transported in Alice in Borderlands. So, and to continue my point a little bit further here, I think you are suggesting that in answering maybe my question of the point of origin here, that it is not of any natural construction, but of some type of supernatural, or dare I say, extraterrestrial, or
Well,
like, some type of,
yeah.
extraterrestrial, or supernatural creation,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it somehow transported or transmutated itself from a fucking board game to an Atari Sega Genesis looking thing.
You could not be so fucking far right up down on that, man. Oh man, that's not. There's no way. You know what it's really called? It's called lazy fucking creative writing. They just threw a game in there because we live in the 21st century. Everything's fucking
And so
digital.
you're telling me it didn't work? You're telling me that didn't work? That
It
wasn't
did work.
successful?
No, I
Yeah,
would
made
have
a
rather.
billion fucking
No,
dollars in a sequel.
all they had to do was have those four kids just stumble upon the board game. Done. That's all they had to do. No, they had to write an Atari game in there. It's not I'm against the idea of an Atari game. It's the fact that if you're gonna do that, that's fine, but then you cannot
You're
pay
such a hater.
homage.
You're such a hater. I
No,
think it was a
I'm
good
critical
update.
when it comes. I'm all for innovative new ways to input things, etc. But you cannot combine a previous plot with how the first protagonist was actually entered into the game Jumanji, and then all of a sudden, like, you're gonna rewrite the fact that, well, Jumanji was actually a video game, but somehow Alan Parrish was actually transported into that video game as well, and
I
therefore
think
that's what
that
he
you're
was.
just missing the point here. It's like there needs to
You're thinking there's
be
2 points
an
of access?
origin
I
story.
don't think so. I
Well,
think
I'm
that fine.
saying that's a
Cool.
good. It's like definitely a way to think about it,
Right.
unless the other
So here's the other point. Well,
explanation is that
no.
the games were created supernaturally, because that would be the only way to really tie it together. That the board game somehow, people were like, yeah, no one's touching me anymore, regardless if I have a heartbeat coming from me or a drum beat coming from me.
Well, you just
That they would then play the video
yeah,
game, and like that
yeah.
was the whole thing, right?
Well, no, there's
Like,
another. Well, to
people
your
play video
point, that
games now.
well, that was my first point. There was a second point I'm trying to get to, if I can get a minute. My goodness, is
But you
that
have
you're
nothing,
talking about?
no comment. You have no
I
comment.
do. No, because you're going around in circles. Here's my other point to you. It's like you talk about the origin of Jumanji, right? Like how did this game become, right? How does it have the ability to sort of like suck people into this game and therefore, like, be, we so in there's a again, I'm going to kind of carry on with this a little bit, because in the board game, when Alan Parrish comes out of the game, you clearly see it's not like a avatar that has a scripted response, just like the 2000 the one that came out with the Rockin', right? You can see, like, when they report it in, like, the game starts you off like on the journey, like, hello, welcome to Jumanji. It's an actual avatar that has a scripted response. So what I'm trying to get at here is that, just like how, let's just take that. I'll entertain it for a minute. Let's say the game was, it's scripted. They get sucked into the game.
Alan
We don't know how.
Parrish was not a non-player character. Alan Parrish was a player, and someone rolled a 5 or an 8, and he escaped.
But the
So
world
that's
of
why he didn't
right.
come out with the script.
No, what I'm saying is that the world of Jumanji is the same. I understand what you're saying. There's 2 points of access of entry. It could be the board game or it could be the video game. What you're overlooking is that when he was when he went to the game, when he rolled the dice and he got sucked into the game, even the hunter who came out, he was not a avatar, a digitally created avatar. He was a actual hunter in the world of Jumanji. Whereas in the video game version they created, everyone was a scripted avatar that had an exact dialogue verbiage when they had to say it as they hinted at it across the way. Like they can click on their chest and boop, it's like, here's your strengths, here's your weaknesses, and this is how you can get to the end of the game. But what I'm trying to get at here is like just how it's a mystery about like, well, we could have been the creators of this game in some shape or form. What if we're the avatars in the game someplace else and someone's wondering like, ooh, who created the world of the earth, right? Like, I don't know. It's like one of those unexplained things. Like, you can't create something out of nothing. It always dates back to like, what was before the earth? What was before stars and the planets? What was before the universe? It's like, it dates back so far that you can't be measured. But if you ask me to guess like how the game of Jumanji actually ended up landing,
I'm not gonna ask you to guess. I'm gonna ask you, Mr. Critic, to
thank
give
you.
me
I appreciate
the
that.
origin story that you would write. What is the origin story that you would put out there
What's
for
broad? What
Jumanji?
for Jumanji,
And
the
make
origin story?
sense. And I would like for you to make sense of that transition from
So
board
here's
game to the virtual reality.
okay, fine. So here's how I might, if I had to do it. Here's how I would do it. It's gonna be tricky from A to B, but let's talk about A. If you ask me how the origins of the board game came about, it must have been created in some places we discussed, like whether it's Australia, Papua New Guinea, Botswana, some place where like that big game hunting, the wilderness, the wild actually exists. Maybe in certain parts of Africa. We're dating this back to, let's say, even like the 1300s or 1400s, where it was once a game, right? Just people just created a game, they were crafted it and just made their rules up along the way. At some point, maybe somebody actually ended up coming past a witch doctor or a shaman who actually put a curse in the game. And then when the next 2 players played it, they got zapped in and became reality, right? Like that would be my first story, how that came to be. We never hear that story, but that's probably the most logical one that actually ends up happening. But then again, another counteract to that is, well, actually, that may be actually why all the animals like rhinos and monkeys and chimps and things like that actually do, they have such large numbers in places like Africa, places like Australia, where these animals are very like unique and very like sophisticated. I don't know how, not sophisticated, but like that's why probably people play that game. The animals came out of the game. That's why they live in those areas so
Sophisticated
much. Yeah,
hippopotamus.
sophisticated. So there's my first answer to that. Now the transition to the digital space, this is where it's gonna get tricky because there has to be an overlap. The only way that would ever happen if either like it mutated or it evolved and like it shed, like the game somehow shed itself off and it knew to develop itself into an Atari system and then just adopted I don't know how you go from a board game to an actual digital console. That's tricky. I don't know how they would actually do that.
It's a fucking witch
Because
doctor. You already said
well,
it. I told the
it could
witch
have been.
doctor I want to play
It
Jumanji
could.
with you.
It could be, yeah, but I don't think it's likely because the board game would have had to have come first, or rather, if you had, it's like anything else. If you have like if you have 2 things together, they would have had to been created at the same time, and then maybe
So
just
okay,
separated.
let's just also further that the language is all in English, right? So clearly, this game is some type of mystical entity, right? Because even regardless of where its origins were, if it wasn't like outside of New England, it had to have transitioned at least one time before that, because the hinges on the game, the glass in the game, like all that kind of stuff, that construction wouldn't have been around in the 1300s. I don't think, right? I think it would have been like, it looks like that thing was made more like you had mentioned, like in the 1800s still. And it was fairly like new looking still when the guys like buried it. And even when Alan took it out, like it was in good shape. So like this mystical power, like I'm interested to see this. So we'll see if Sony comes out with that, that third follow up there to make it a a trilogy with The Rock and everybody. But
Uh,
I thought they were really enjoyable. Like, good, great. Those are stretches, but like it was super enjoyable. And I think it's the same thing like with Jungle Cruise with The Rock. Like it was like an enjoyable movie, right? Good story. Good.
I actually don't movie. I actually did like him in The Rock recently. Well, recently it was the one. He played the Bishop in Double. I forgot the name. Him and Ryan Reynolds were in it, and he's like a double secret agent where it's
Red
like
One.
Red One. I actually like that. It was pretty good. I did really like.
He got a bad. Recently, there's been some accounts out here that he got a bad rap for being like tough to work with, which it's like as a fan, it's like hard to imagine that. But I guess like when you put the industry hat on, it's like somebody with like that big of a name and packed of a schedule. Like he was accused of like peeing in water bottles to like and like leaving them around set or having people like his assistants or PAs dispose of them. Being like 8 hours late for shoots. But like I don't know if there's any truth to this. But like that was the movie that was on Netflix with Gal Gadot as well, right? I have a kind of a love-hate relationship with Gal Gadot because don't let them make you look so pretty all the time. In like when she was Wonder Woman, her hair is always perfect. Her skirt was so short, right? Like, and I'm not saying like they should be wearing pants, but it was just like, man, is that really what they're gonna wear still? Is that still the uniform? All right. Well, this was a rousing episode of Bigger and Louder. Thank you for sticking with us to the end. We'll talk to you guys really soon to make up for this one. Have a great night, folks.
Later.